Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Ramadan. I hope that everyone are in good condition, and we are still on SRC 501 class. So today we are going to enter module 6, which is the communication competence in the workplace. Communication competence in workplace is very important because when you're working with people, you need to have a good communication skills. You need to be very competent with what you have because you are trying to deliver the messages. Okay, now this chapter will be focusing more on the um, skills that we need to have, especially those who are in the customer service field, because they serve people, and they need to have a very good communication skills. Okay, so are you ready? If you're ready, I'm ready too. So let's go. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Right. Before we begin, we need to understand the characteristic of a competent communicators. In becoming a competent communicators, there are several characteristics that must be fulfilled. Okay. By having this as a guide, it will definitely lead us to be a competent communicators, and it will surely make us aware about what are the things that we should be focusing on in order to be a competent communicator. Okay, first you need to have immediacy. Immediacy means psychological closeness. You need to be very attached towards the communication that you're trying to send, and then you need to have a good psychological reactions towards your sender. You need to understand the situation. By then only you will become a competent communicator. Number two, you need to have a supportiveness, which is the empathy or the sense of personal control. It means that you understand about other people problem. There is a difference between sympathy and empathy. Empathy means that we do understand and we try to cope with it, but sympathy means that we are putting our shoes, we're putting our life in that particular person's shoes. So we try to avoid sympathy because we want to have empathy. Empathy is a sense of a personal control, which we can understand other people's problem. For example, if your workers is late for work, okay, and before this, he or she never come late for work. So you need to understand the situation and listen to the reasons that he or she give. So by then you have a good empathy. By having a good empathy, you will have lots of what we call sense of belonging, and you become more person than you ever know because you support them and you do understand their situation. But it doesn't mean that you need to sympathize them, you need to solve their problem. No, it's just in a matter of you understand their problem. Okay, number three, you need to be strategic ambiguity. Feeling um, feeling uh, what we call you need to you need to have the curiosity inside of you. When you have a curiosity, you tend to have multiple interpretations towards something because you are curious about something, you're not sure about something. When you're unsure about something, you tend to lead yourself to a better solution or to a better interpretations because you are analyzing the situation differently. Okay, so strategy ambiguity or that curiosity is very important. Okay, number four, interaction management. Interaction management means the patterns of interactions to move among the topic. There are some people who cannot move um, among the topics. I mean, like their conversation, they can't create a sequence towards their conversation. If you are unable to create a sequence towards your communication, towards the sequence of the topics, this will be a problem. And this will definitely be a barrier for a competent communicator, because you don't know how to jump from point A to point B, and then all of a sudden, if the sender is asking about D, you cannot skip to that D because you are stuck in the A and B conversation. So interaction management is very, very, very important for you in becoming a competent communicator. You need to understand the situation, you need to be knowledgeable, you need to respond, you need to be very responsive, okay, towards the topics of communication. So by having these four characteristics, it will build up your character as a competent communicator. A competent communicator is not only important in a workplace, but it is also important for you in becoming as a human being, because, for example, if you not be able to have an empathy in yourself, this will definitely be very difficult, because you tend to ignore other people's problems and you tend to focusing on yourself, okay. And for example, if you don't have a good interaction management, you will have problem in conversation, because you don't know how to start a conversation, you don't know how to continue a conversation, so this will be a problem. So these four behavioral characteristics is a very good guidance for you in becoming a competent communicator. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Next, we have a conflict management skills. Conflict management skills is also important, not only in workplace but in your daily life, because, as you know, conflict is something that will happen very commonly, because whenever we are dissatisfied with something, conflict will occur. So there are a few conflict management skills that you need to know. The first one is avoidance. Avoidance means that you're denying the existence of the conflict, meaning that you are avoiding the conflict. You doesn't want to commit to that conflict. You just ignore it. Okay. Number two is competition. Competition means that the conflict is seen as a battle with a winner or loser. It's more towards debating. You are debating in order to conclude who is the winner and who is the loser. For those who has this kind of conflict management skills, they are someone who has a broad knowledge, or sometimes they are a factual person. Okay. Number three is compromise. Compromise is the willingness to negotiate and to lose some of your position, and the other party is willing to do the same. You are compromising towards each other, meaning that, okay, it's a win-win situation. I can lose some, so you lose some. So it's a compromising. Number four, it's accommodation, where you set aside your views in favor for the others. Okay. For example, that you have your own opinion. However, it seems that you think other people's opinion is suitable for that current condition, so you're focusing on the other person's opinion. You are respecting their opinion, so it's accommodation. You are accommodate with that current conflict. And then number five is collaboration. It's seem likely compromising, because you have a thoughtful negotiation and you are compromised towards the situation, and then you work together in order to solve the conflict. Okay, that is five of the conflict management skills that you can use in order for you to reduce the conflict or to mitigate the conflict. Okay. Right. As I mentioned earlier, so this chapter we are going to focus on the customer service. Okay, customer service encounter. So, as you know, the customer service is the essential essential element in an organization, because they are the front lines of the organization. By saying that, it means that they need to be competent in their communication, and they need to be able to communicate well or verse well with the public. Okay, so customer service encounter can be defined as the moment of interaction between the customer and the firm. Okay, but they are represented by the customer service officer. Okay, so there are three types of encounters. The first one is the remote encounter, indirect, and then direct. Okay, what are these? So let's look at this now. The remote encounter means where the customer is interacting with a service. For example, you are ordering food with Food Panda. It's an app, okay? It's an application, but it is application by Food Panda. So you are using the applications as the medium for their services. So this is what we call as the remote encounter. Okay, and then the indirect personal encounter, which means by telephone. So for example, that you're calling customer care line. Okay, if you want to, if you have inquiries about your billing, okay, for example, Celcom, your mobile, Digi, you call the care line. So this is what we call the indirect personal encounter, because you can talk to the customer service officer. And then we have direct personal encounter, which is the face-to-face. Okay, so each one of these encounters will definitely create judgment from the customer. So an organization or firms need to create a good customer service encounter to ensure that the customer is satisfied with their services, no matter whether it is a remote encounter, indirect or direct. Definitely direct is very essential, because you can see them face to face, you can see the face expression, and you can see their body gesture, so it's very important. But the both for the remote and indirect, they are also important, because by phones you can listen to the tone when they're talking, and then the remote encounter, it depends on the service applications itself. Either it been lag, or there is a problem, bug, for example. So these are things that is very important for a firms or organizations to understand in order to create a good customer service encounter. Right, customer service skill. We have two of it. Compliance gaining strategies, where we promise, we track, we pre-giving, we give moral appeal. Okay, and then we have emotional labor, which is the employees are expected to display their feelings in satisfying the organizational rule expectations. Okay, so these two skills is very important. Okay, because when we're dealing with human, different human behavior can cause us different kind of attitudes to respond. So customer service officer need to have a good mental health conditions. Okay, if not, they are going to be stressed about their work, because they are dealing with human behavior, right? um, you know that humans are very complicated, so by having this, it will definitely give effects towards the productivity. Okay. Next, we're going to enter the dark side of workplace communication. Okay, um, either we are working or studying, there is always dark side for everything. Okay, and in workplace, there are certain things that happens to us. For example, sexual harassment, bullying, threatening, threatening. So these are the things that we call as the dark sides of the workplace communication, because sometimes what we converse may be interpreted differently, and it may cause something else. Okay, so first, aggressive communication in a workplace. Okay, workplace aggression includes all the communication which individual attempt to harm others at work. So which means that whenever you are creating something or whenever you are trying to converse something that is with attempting to hurt others, it means that it is a workplace aggression. Okay, Newman, 1998, argues that workplace aggression occurs in three levels. First is the withholding of cooperation, which is spreading the rumors, intense argument, either with the supervisors or co-workers, the customers, sabotage, and frequent display of intense anger, which is resulting in suicidal threats, okay, physical fight. Um, all of these three levels is actually they work like a symbiosis because it starts with the rumors. Okay, it starts with the rumors, for example, and then from rumors you start to argue about that thing, and from these arguments it will definitely result in intense anger and you might hurt someone physically. Okay, so you need to understand this because this is the reality. This is the reality. Rumors, gossips, they always happen no matter where you are. Okay, no matter where you work, no matter where you go, rumors and gossip will definitely happen because humans, we are dealing with humans. Humans love to mm, to just be busybody and to know about other people's life. Okay, and definitely when we have this kind of thing, sometimes we feel very defensive, and if it's true, then we'll feel very sad, we'll feel angry, so we'll have the argument. So whenever these kind of things happen, it is very important for you to understand the conflict management skills that I have mentioned earlier in order for you to justify your actions towards what to do next. Okay. Another a dark side of a workplace communication is sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can be defined as unwelcome, solicited, repeated behavior of a sexual nature. It can be by physical touch, or it can also be by verbal. Okay, sometimes our words are offensive. Our words are very what we call it's not suitable. So we feel sexual harassed by the words. So that is what is sexual harassment. Okay, so it can be divided into two types of sexual harassment. First is quid pro quo sexual harassment, where the employee is offered a reward or threatened with punishment based on his or her participation in a sexual activity. For example, um, you got promoted, but in order to get promoted, there are a few things that you need to do by doing sexual activity. So this is what we call as quid pro quo sexual harassment. Number two, hostile work environment sexual harassment, which um, the workplace are sexually offensive, intimidating, hostile, and affects the ability to perform his or her job, either by words or by physical touch. For example, when you're doing work in your workplace, and then suddenly your office mate come by and touch you somewhere that is very sensitive. So this is what we call as hostile work environment sexual harassment. Two types of sexual harassment. Um, Nowadays, not only the female had been harassed, but the male also have been harassed. So it is very important for you to be very aware towards the verbal communication by your friends, by your uh, workers, by your bosses. So you need to be very aware and you need to understand either that is a sexual harassment or not. And you need to tell yourself if you're not comfortable with the situation, you can always lodge a report, and it is better for you to keep the evidence by recording it, Um, if it's verbally, then you can simply voice record it, and it is very important to have support from your friends or your family. You can't feel shy upon this thing because, yeah, I know it's a sexual harassment, okay, and people might misinterpret, and maybe people would judge us as we were the one who started it, okay, but no matter what it is, we know what is right and what is wrong, so please stand for your right, okay. Okay, now we are going to enter the types of communication in organization. So basically, in the organization, there are two types of it: the internal and the external. The internal is the communication that takes place in the organization among the people within the organization. For example, different group employees, the employers and the employees. It's within the organization. And then the other one is external communication, where we communicate with people outside from the organization. For example, the public, the press, the media, the government, the stakeholders, the sponsors. So this is what we call as internal and external communication. Okay? So the internal communication serves to inform, instruct, educate, develop, motivate, and to entertain direct the people in that organization. However, for external communication, it is more towards sending information towards the people outside of the organization. For example, we send letters, notices, brochures, demonstrations, telephone calls. So this is the external communication serves as the information providers towards the people outside of the organization. Okay. Internal can be oral or written, visual, audiovisual, formal or informal, upward and downward. As for external, it can happen in any forms of communication as long as it is information provided towards the people outside of the organizations. Okay, now we're talking about the directions of communication. As you can see, we are going to talk about the upward communication, downward. You can see there upward, downward, lateral, and another one is grapevine. Okay, so if you're looking at the graph or the picture, I bet that everyone can understand about the upward, downward, and lateral. Okay, upward is actually where the communication moves from the employees to the supervisors, and it occurs in a large organizations because they have different hierarchical levels. So upward communication is actually one of the communication used in a large organization. Okay, and then we have downward communication. Don't don't look at the arrows. That is for lateral. Okay, so downward is from upward to down. Okay, it moves from the top to the bottom. For example, from the managers to the subordinates, or from the CEOs to the managers. Okay, so as you can see, it travels through seniors, executive to junior levels, functions, and then to divisioners. Okay, so this is what we call as downward communication. And then we have formal communication. Formal communication is the communications that we use to send out information that is follows a well-defined hierarchical pattern. For example, from what we call it's a letter from the workers to the managers. So they need to send the letters in a well-defined hierarchical pattern. So it has a format towards it. So, for example, we send memos, instructions, clarifications, agreements. So this is what we call as formal communications. Okay, and then we have informal communication, where we don't have any construct manners there, and it happens outside of the formal forums. It can happen through chats, okay, and informal talks. What else? During lunch, during breakfast, it's informal communication. Okay, and then we have lateral communication. Lateral communication is actually in the same level of same level of communication. For example, that um, uh, from from the from the subordinates in the same department, marketing department. So that is what we call as lateral communication, same level. Then we have interactive communication. It's a two-way process where we have question and answer sessions. We create informations provided, but we're asking for feedback. Okay, so it can happen through meetings, conferences, teleconferencing. Okay, but it is a two-way communication. Okay, and then we have mass communication where we have a mass scale of audience. Okay, for example, public speaking, newspapers, magazines. Okay, and then yes, this is the last one, the grapevine. Grapevine is one of the informal communication. The source is not clear. It travels through informal communication. It's actually uh, more towards like gossip. Okay, grapevine. So grapevine always happens in a workplace. So you need to be very careful with it because it can, if it's spread out by someone who have influence towards something, it can make things worse. Okay, so I think that is all for communication competence in workplace. You have already understand the behavioral characteristic of a competent communicator. You already understand about the conflict management skills, how to manage your conflict. Okay, and then you already know what are the dark sides of workplace communication, and then you already know about the types of communications in organizations and the directions of communications in organization. I hope that this chapter gives you a clear view about how to be a competent communicator, especially in a workplace. Because after this, you're going to be in the industry. You're going to be working with other people, and definitely you are going to communicate with different people. So I hope that by having this knowledge, it will guide you in becoming a good person, definitely a good person and a competent communicator, inshallah. So with that, I thank you for participating in this video. Hope to see you guys again in the next chapter. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.